Hello. So I wanted to make a Frost Mage Season 2 guide because I probably should have made this a while ago and I just haven't. I'm actually in raid right now, but eventually I got nothing to do. Let's start with the talents. This is your single target talent build. You can change whatever's over here. That's not a DPS thing. So, you wouldn't want to change Support Warp, you wouldn't want to change Shifting Power, you wouldn't want to change Rune, and you would want to keep Ice Nova. But, if you want Ice Flows, you can take Ice Flows. If you don't want Blast Flow, you can get rid of that. If you don't want DB, you can get rid of that. All that doesn't matter. The DPS nodes are the only thing that matter here. Everything else is optional. Over here, this is your single target build. That's it. Nothing else to say. For those of you that have been around for Season 1, you'll know that Frost actually has 2 single target rotations, and they depend on the talents you take. Even if you aren't doing the minimal Ice Lance rotation, this is still your best single target build, which we are still doing the minimal Ice Lance rotation this season. So, yeah, but we'll get into that later. For Mythic Plus talents, it looks like this. This is like the general build that I would recommend you run in Mythic Plus. If you want to change things, the most common thing you're going to change is from Wintertide to Snowstorm. It's just a very minor gain in AoE, but it'll get larger the more targets you pull. So this is a really good talent to take in like Brackenhide or just any dungeon that your tank's going to be pulling a lot in, because it's not really dungeon specific. It's more based on how your tank pulls, because as you can see, this stacks up to 30 times, and it has a 30-second duration for each stack. So if your stacks fall off, or you're just not really getting much use out of it, then it's just not good. Which is why this is the default build, because it's very close. Snowstorm, for instance, is about 2% better on 5 target. Again, that goes up the more targets you take, but it's not that crazy. Single target's always really good. Aside from that, you can also drop Slick Ice or Piercing Cold for Frostbite. That's fine. I would mostly do this in, again, a really large AoE situation, and I probably wouldn't do it on Tyrannical, because you care mostly about this for just AoE pad, really AoE damage. It just makes it so your Frozen Army or Blizzard are like continually shattering all the mobs you're hitting if they're freezable. You can also drop Splintering Cold for Sub-Zero. You never really do this, but again, same situation, massive AoE pad, and that's it. So Brackenhide, really, I wouldn't take this like in more than that, but we'll see. You can decide for yourself. And then lastly, you can drop Dragon's Breath and Temporal Velocity for Time Manipulation and Freezing Cold. Time Manipulation just lets you use Ice Nova more often. Kind of, with how many times you use Ice Lance, ends up being about half the cooldown reduction. So your Ice Nova is a 12-second cooldown instead of 25, which is good because you use Ice Nova rotationally in AoE. Freezing Cold is just a bit of a minor DPS increase with Snowstorm. You don't change how you use Cone of Cold. It's just nice to have that extra value of the freeze. But yeah, let's start talking about the raid rotation. So this is your raid rotation, and this is pinned in the Frost channel of the Mage Discord, and that'll be updated. But if you're familiar with it from last season, the only thing that's changed is that you will do these 2 things. So if Icy Veins has less than 10 seconds remaining and 20 seconds or more than 20 seconds on its CD, or less than 15 seconds remaining and greater than 70 seconds on its CD, then you'll use the normal rotation of just using Ice Lance via Fingers of Frost. Whereas in this rotation, when that doesn't occur, you don't use Fingers of Frost. And then you'll also just send a Brain Freeze without precast Frostbolt if Icy Veins has less than 5 seconds remaining on its cooldown. Pretty self-explanatory. I'll give you an example. Here's just, I wrote out like the rotation. So you always make the decision after the first Ice Lance of your Flurry combo, but you'll see what that looks like here. So here's the example. You have Frostbolt, Flurry, Icy Veins, or Lust. Do my 2 Ice Lances because I have Brain Freeze. Frostbolt, Flurry, 1 Ice Lance, no Brain Freeze, so I Frostbolt. Frostbolt, Flurry, 1 Ice Lance, back to Frostbolting. Frostbolt, Flurry, Rune, 1 Ice Lance, Frostbolt again because I have no Brain Freeze. I just spam Frostbolt here. Ignore my Fingers Frost. I have Brain Freeze here, so I use 2. Here, I'm going to end up being above 70 seconds, so I'm going to just use 2 Ice Lances regardless. Use this Fingers Frost because, again, my Icy Veins duration. I may use Lust when my first one runs out. Here I'm at shifting power now because my Icy Veins is less than 20 seconds. I'm not really optimizing this for damage because I haven't used my trinket or anything, but yeah, I mean, you get the idea. Frostbolt, because I have no brain freeze. Frostbolt again. The important thing is, like, sometimes you'll get your 4-piece proccing after your first Ice Lance, and it'll be good to react to that, but it's like here, I double Ice Lance because my 4-piece procced after my first Ice Lance. And yeah, that's how you do the single target raid rotation, which again requires these talents. So either at least 1 Deep Shadow with 2-piece, or Frozen Touch with 4-piece. So this will almost never happen in Mythic Plus. You will pretty much only encounter this in raid, because in raid on single target fights you play this talent build, which has at least 1 Deep Shatter, and on 2 target fights you play this build, which has, you know, still at least 1 Deep Shatter, so you're still doing it. So even during freezing winds, by the way, you just ignore Fingers of Frost, and hopefully they fix that in 10.1.5. But till then, this is what you do. All right, your normal rotation for just hasn't changed at all. You Frostbolt, Flurry, Icy Veins plus Frozen Orb, 2 Ice Lances, same opener as MILF, and then your priority is pretty much the same, right? You just Icy Veins if Rune of Power is not active, you're gonna Rune of Power. If Icy Veins is greater than 15 seconds on CD and you don't have a Rune of Power, you're gonna have Frozen Orb as a priority. Again, not a rotation, this is a priority list. So if you have Frozen Orb up, you'll use it. If you have Flurry up when you're casting Frostbolt, you'll use it. If you don't have Flurry up, then you just cast Ice Lance if the target either has Winter's Chill or you have Freeze Frost. You'll Shifting Power if you're not Rune of Power, and otherwise you're casting Frostbolt. So, you know, it's pretty simple. And I'll give you an example of that. Frostbolt, Flurry, Icy Veins. I'm going to Lust 2. You know, do my 2 Ice Lances. I should have kept Ice Lance in there, but it's fine. Just proccing things. But yeah, you can see I'm just Ice Lancing when the target's Winter's Chill, or when I have Freeze Frost. I go back to Frostbolting when I don't. Once Rune of Power runs out, I'm going to Shifting Power. So here I'll Shifting Power. If you can do it when the target has Winter's Chill on it, that's best, but it's fine if you don't. And this is just what you're going to do in Mythic Plus. You're going to Lust as soon as your first Lust runs out. That's just what Frost does with Temporal Warp. I'll Rune here because Icy Veins is 20 seconds away. Get Frozen Orb as soon as it comes up. Use my Fierce Frost. Go back to Frostbolt. Use my Fierce Frost. Here I didn't want to use Icy Veins because I still had Rune. And I accidentally spellkeep this, so that was unfortunate. Anyway. Yeah, just Frostbolt, Flurry, use your Ice Lances. Back to Frostbolt, Flurry, use your Ice Lances. And that's just, you know, the normal rotation. So for your AoE priority, it starts at 3 targets. This is a change from the 2 target that it was at last season, but we have our new 2-piece, which makes it so you want to do the normal rotation on 2 target. Your opener is going to be a precast Blizzard into Icy Veins plus Orb. If you gain haste during Blizzard, you get more ticks of Blizzard, so by Icy Veinsing afterwards, you just get more CDR on Orb and more damage from Blizzard. If you don't have Icy Veins, you're just going to Rune into Orb into Blizzard to take advantage of Freezing Rain. Otherwise, so outside of that, your priority is Rune of Power, you know, if it's not active. Then if you're running Snowstorm, your highest priority is kind of cold if the target's frozen, which it just means like last GCD was Ice Nova / Frost Nova, and you have, you know, greater than or equal to 50% haste. Otherwise, you're gonna Orb and Blizzard. You're gonna Ice Nova if you have 30 stats of Snowstorm and greater than 50% haste, because you need at least 50% haste for you to be able to Ice Nova into Cone of Cold and have the Cone of Cold hit before the Ice Nova expires. So yeah, if you have like 16% base haste, you'll have 50% in Ice Veins. you're going to flurry without Frostbolt if the target doesn't have Winter's Chill. This is actually above Ice Lance. This is a change from last tier that's come about because of our tier set. Right now, this doesn't have any Brain Freeze or target swapping requirements, but that might change in the future. The Frost AOE APL definitely needs to be looked at a little bit. That's okay. Otherwise, you're going to Cone of Cold if the target isn't frozen. You have 30 Snowstorm stacks. This is the same as this, except since you're not on a requirement to Cone of Cold, because here you need a Cone of Cold if your last GC was Ice Nova or Frost Nova. Otherwise, you won't be able to shatter it. So if you're not able to shatter it, it's just much lower priority. And then Empowered Ice Lance, which is just Fingers of Frost or Winter's Chill Ice Lance, is after that. And I have these fillers. This is just to represent because normally Flurry was here last season, but it's not. So the top one is a little bit cluttered now. But anyway, you never want to use Unempowered Ice Lances because it's just wasting damage. And so that's kind of what I was trying to do by separating these. Technically, you don't need to say fillers. Like, this is all one priority list, and this is how they fall on the priority list. But yeah, I just like this because it tells you shouldn't use Unempowered Ice Lances. You should use these 3 buttons. But yeah, you're shifting power. There's a condition to use it at like the top of your priority. And this is also actually over Flurry now because I didn't change it. And then Ice Nova, same thing. Just use it over Flurry, use it over Fingers Frost at high target counts. Then Frostbolt or Arcane Explosion, which is the like 8 target plus and above 30% mana. This doesn't matter at all. You can not have Arcane Explosion bound. It won't change anything. So let's give you an example. This is the General and Plus talent that I talked about. So precast Blizzard, do this, Flurry, use my Ice Lances, Flurry, Blizzard, use my Ice Lances, Flurry, use my Ice Lances, Blizzard, use my Orb, use my Rune, use my Blizzard. And here I have Shifting Power. And yeah. That's rotation, and that's 5 target, right? So I'm just cross bolting. And I don't have Snowstorm, but you can imagine if I did, here I would just like rerun and stuff. But if I did have Snowstorm, I would just, do this, and you can see they all crit. And you need at least 50% haste to do that, which I have because I'm in Icy Veins. So, yep, that's the Frost AOE rotation. Nothing too crazy about it. People would probably prefer I talk about gear. From a stat perspective, Frost generally goes Mastery and Crit and then Haste. Versus pretty good in AoE too, but it's worse than Crit and Mastery. You can see I only have like 27% crit. I'm not going to talk about the shower cap. You don't want that. It literally doesn't matter at all. But you can afford with going a lot lower crit as Frost than you might think, even though crit is a very, very valuable stat in AoE. And I need a lot more Mastery. Like, my Frost gear is kind of bad at the moment because I'm just mostly geared for Arcane. But Frost will always use Ice File Corrupting Rage everywhere. Use it in Mythic Plus, use it in single target, everywhere in Raid. This is just your best file by a lot. You'll get very high uptime on it, Mythic Plus, like generally 92% plus. And this gives you about a 5 or 6% crit. And then you have the option of just using whatever rune seems best for you, either Hissing, Howling, or Buzzing rune. And yeah, you can gain like 7 or 8% crit by using Buzzing rune and Ice File Corrupting Rage, which is pretty nice because it means that your gear can be pretty heavy haste mastery, which is pretty good in single target, while still retaining really good AoE because you can just change to Buzzing Rune and whatnot. So that's good. That should guide you on literally every single piece of gear that you have that's not embellishment pieces. And as for trinkets, if you're looking at Raid, Vessel Searing Shadow and like Ryan Crested Voodoo Doll are really good, or the Ominous Chromatic Essence is also like pretty bis from Forgotten Experiments. This is really good in single target. This is a really good like AoE single target thing. It's like kind of mediocre compared to some other things. Your vessel's going to be a lot better for single target, generally speaking. This is bad now. We don't want that. You'll take the class trinket for AOE because it's good in AOE. It is pretty bad in single target though, but the nice thing is this is a really good Mythic Plus trinket because there's a lot of fights that are cleave and Mythic Plus at the moment, so you're still casting Blizzard and you're getting a lot of frozen orbs out, so it works pretty well. There's a really bad downside though. Obviously increasing damage taken by 5% is quite a bit worse than like the Warlock's 10% movement speed reduction, but yeah, that's okay. Because it's so much stronger of a trinket, right? That was sarcasm, in case you did not know. Doesn't matter if you have two hand or one hand, offhand, same stats. As for embellishments, because that's something that a lot of people will probably be interested in, you will want to go either 2x Shadow Flame or Ozerweave. And if you Ozerweave, you can either go boots and chest or boots and shoulders. If you're raiding Mythic and you're likely to get the 450 shoulders, you should go boots and chest. If you're not, you should go shoulders and boots. And that's actually going to be your best bet for Mythic Plus because there's better in AoE. It's really good in raid, depending on your gear. Like, the Shadow Flame might sim better. But yeah, if you're playing mainly Arcane and Frost and raid, I'd recommend going Ozerweave. If you're playing all the specs in Mythic Plus, I'd recommend going Ozerweave. If you're playing all the specs in raid, then you can go Shadow Flame. But yeah, simple as that. If you're wondering why I didn't mention any of the plus trinkets, that's because they all suck. I mean, the Voodoo Doll's okay, but you're not going to use it long term if you get better raid trinkets. Idle Pure Decay sims decently, and it's not good. Like it's decent in AOE, kind of, but no, it's not really. So yeah, you want raid trinkets. The good news is all the best raid trinkets that we want, aside from the class trinket, come from the first three bosses. The Screaming Black Dragon Scale, the Vessel Searing Shadow, and then the Ominous Chromatic Essence. So not too bad to try and farm them, even on Mythic. Like this should be pretty easy to pug. So that'd be good.